I want to tell you a story, as I'm in a storytelling mood lately, it seems. This building right here, this is what used to be the store. It was called PJ's Convenience Store. And that was the store when I was talking to you last night. It's now an apartment. When I was talking to you last night, that was the store. That's where the store was anyway. That, oh, when I told you the story about the can of soda with the rust in it and how the lady accused me of running some sort of a con with cans of soda and threw 39 cents at me and cussed me out and whatnot, that was the store right there. That's where it was. It was on the bottom floor of this building. Anyway, it looked a little different. It's all been changed now, this building. At the front of it don't look the same, and it's had siding put on it and stuff. It don't really look anything like it did back in those days, but anyway, I only know that that's it because I remember where it was. But next door to that, this story is actually about the building next door to it, the little house there. Let me focus in on it. See, there's the little house. There it is. Looks like the chimney's fallen over or something. Something's fallen over on it. Anyway, that little house there, that was Aunt Sarah's house. Now, let me tell you about Aunt Sarah. When I was a little boy, there was an old lady that lived in that house. Her name was Sara Kerr. And Sara Kerr was actually my friend Tom Kerr's mother. And she was tough as nails. She's a very tough lady. Anyway, oh, by the way, that store I just told you about, PJ's Convenience Store, when I was a little boy, that store was called Al Manahan's store. It was owned by an older man by the name of Alan Manahan. And I remember going in there when I was a little boy because my grandparents, well, Sara Kerr's lawn, her back lawn, and my grandparents' back lawn actually joined. So we used to come across my grandparents' property and we'd go across Sarah's property. And we would we'd go across Sarah's property to go to the store. Sometimes in the summertime, our grandma would give us a dime to go and buy a bottle of soda pop or something, you know. Not often, but occasionally we get something like that. Anyway, but the little house there, that belonged to Sara Kerr. Now, Sara Kerr was married to Frank Kerr. Frank and Sara were Tom Kerr's parents, his father and mother. Now, Frank was a brother to Fonzie Kerr. And Fonzie Kerr was my Grandma Fournier's dad. So that's the connection anyway. So these people were related to me anyway, the Kerrs, you know, through my grandma. Through my Grandma Fournier, my dad's mom. Anyway, and it was my Grandma Fournier and my Grandpa Fournier's property back there. My Grandpa Fournier that I told you about that built the stairwell and behind the bank, his house was behind Sarah's house over on Wilson Street East, the next street over, and the two backyards came up against each other. Anyway, Sara, she was an old elderly woman. She was nearly blind. She could barely see, you know, maybe see a few feet ahead of her. That was about it. She was kind of an old, gnarled up, wizened up old lady, kind of all bent over, hunched, you know, the way they are. And there wasn't much to her. You could probably a good stiff breeze would pick her up and carry her away, you know. And she often wore these old-fashioned black dresses, you know, that ladies used to wear, like something out of the Victorian era. Anyway, she was a really good hearted person, but she was really rough around the edges too. And I remember at Halloween, every kid in town used to call her Aunt Sara. We all knew her as Aunt Sara. At every Halloween, we had to go to Aunt Sarah's house for candy because, you know, it was a scary experience going to Aunt Sarah's house because of her being the way she was. She cursed a blue streak, you know, and stuff. Anyway, Aunt Sara, when you go in there, when you went in through the front door, you were in her kitchen. Basically, her kitchen and her living room were all one big open room. And so anyway, you go in there and you'd be in her kitchen. She'd be sitting on a chair at the table facing the door, and she'd have her bowl of candy there beside her. And when you knocked on the door, she'd yell, "Yeah, come in. Come in. I can't answer the goddamn door. Come in." So we'd go inside, and she'd be kind of squinting at us and leaning forward to look at us. "Oh, let me look at you. Who in the hell are you anyway? Whose effing kid are you?" And you'd tell her, I'd say, "Well, no, I'm Tommy Fournier's son." "Oh, Tommy Fournier's son. Yeah, all right. Well, get over here and open up your GD bag and I'll give you some effing candy." You know. So you'd very cautiously approach her. You'd open up your bag there, hold it out, and she'd put some candy in your bag for you. And you'd say thank you, and "You're welcome. Now get out of the way. There's other kids coming in, goddammit." And she's like that. And anyway, she's quite a character. Oh, open up your GD bag and I'll give you some effing candy. you know. Anyway, a lot of kids used to think she was a witch. So the thing was, you had to go and see the witch. Now, I knew she wasn't a witch. I mean, I knew her better than some of them did, and I knew she wasn't a witch. But anyway, I remember that, though. When we were really young, there was a girl in our class that my cousin Alan had a crush on. I grew up with my cousin Alan. He was a few months younger than me. And she used to be babysat by Sara Kerr. So after school, she'd be at Sara Kerr's house. And I remember my cousin Alan, he had a crush on this girl, a huge crush. And he was always looking for any excuse to see her. And so, anyway, he knew she was over at Sarah's place, and we'd be at my grandparents'. And he would say, "Come on, let's go over to Aunt Sarah's." And I'd say, "What do we want to go over there for?" He'd say, "Well, you know why. You know why we want to go over there." And I said, "Oh, all right." So we'd go over, and of course, he'd be all excited to see his little girlfriend, And Sarah, if it was a hot day or whatever, she'd offer us a soda pop. And she'd say, "All right, get your ass out to the kitchen and get a couple of soda pops out of the ice box." And she said, "The goddamn opener's hanging on a string there up against the effing wall. So just open up the GD soda pops." She'd say all the words. I'm saying a little bit, but she wouldn't say GD or effing. It'd be the whole thing, "Open them up and bring them out here. We'll have a drink." And so anyway, I'd go in and bring them in anyway. And if you hesitated at all, if you weren't just right on the job to go get them, she'd say, "Well, hurry up. I'm not your GD maid. Get in there. Do what I told you to do. GD, So anyway, I don't know what the F you think this is. Get in there and do what I told you to do." That's just how she was, Very, very kind-hearted person. She came to Canada from the United States, actually. She came from, back in her day, it was so long ago she came to Canada. She came from the Wyoming Territory. It was still referred to as the Wyoming Territory when she came from it. And she crossed over into the western provinces. And what happened was my great uncle Frank, Tom Kerr's dad, had gone out on the train to help with the harvest. And anyway, she was the cook at a place he was working, bringing in the harvest. She got hired on to cook for the men, and that's how Frank and her got together. Another funny story about her and Frank is they used to argue a lot. They used to bicker a lot, And when my old friend Tom Kerr was a little boy, this was back in the 1930s, in the house they had a mouse infestation. And at night, you'd hear them running back and forth up over your head inside the ceilings, and in the walls and stuff. Anyway, one night after supper, Frank was sitting in his chair reading the newspaper. Sarah was cleaning up the supper dishes, and you could hear the mice running back and forth overhead, inside up in the ceiling. And Sarah, she got kind of ugly, and she yelled at Frank. She says, "Frank, I thought you were going to do something about those GD mice." And Frank just looked up from his paper, very calmly as anything. He looked at her and he says, "What do you mean mice?" And she says, "Well, God damn it, there's an infestation here. I thought you were effing well going to do something about that." And he said, "No," he said, "there's no infestation." He said, "It's just one mouse." And she just looked at him. She said, "One mouse, my ass." One mouse, there's an infestation, I'm telling you. And he says, no, he said, "It's just one, but it's wearing horseshoes." That's what he said. There's one mouse wearing horseshoes. Anyway, I think I put enough profanity in this video, so I'll stop now. It's hard to tell a story about Sara without putting some profanity in it, though, because profanity was kind of her trademark. She was known for it. Anyway, I'm going to get out of town, like I say, because I'm pushing my luck. I know that. And, yeah, I don't know. In Perth, I have to be careful. I can get myself into a lot of trouble here very easily. And I have done so in the past. And with that guy at the Metro store checking out my license plate and stuff, I don't know what was going on with that. But I have a feeling the police have been called on me and I've been accused of something. So it's time for me to go anyway. We'll see y'all later.